Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is McLean, and reason why I'm recording this video and posting this to YouTube is to shut down any misconceptions or ideas that, for whatever reason, someone creates and has a podcast on YouTube that they somehow possess some untangible or unachievable talent or that no one else can. I was challenged by this podcaster by the name of Jake Isenberg that someone else that has a podcast, and just because they do have a podcast, are better than me in front of a camera or verbally articulating my points. I was going to shave and dress differently for this. I went out for a walk, took my dog out, so I'm a bit sweaty. So since I am already hot and bothered by this outrageous claim, I decided to then record this video to prove my point or disprove his point that for this perception of this idea, such as of a teenage girl back in Facebook days that they used to argue over who was more popular in school or popular overall just because of the number of followers they had. So the topic of discussion is the Boston Celtics offseason and what moves we as fan base and think they should make, given our cap situation as well as ability to improve the roster now for the upcoming season, 2025-26 season, as well as for the future. For most Celtics fans, I will tell you this, cover your ears, but whether you like it or not, the most likely path here to succeeding not only in the short term, but also in the long term would be to trade Jaylen Brown, along with Drew Holiday, Sam Hauser, and Kristaps Porzingis. But don't shoot me just yet, okay? Just hear me out for a second. I am, first of all, a conversationalist. I don't like this one person speaking or talking at you and thinking that my ideas and my perspective, my view on the world or a particular subject is the only way. Because it isn't the only way. It is my idea and my perspective from my angle and point of view. I like having other people because I like brainstorming. I like exchanging ideas and exchanging thoughts. And there is such a thing as stupid idea, but in most case scenarios, it's just, elaborating on an educational thoughts and ideas that you may have, such as the situation of our cap, picks, and ability to improve the roster for the foreseeable future as well as in immediate future or immediate present, one would say. So given that, I would like to do this with more people so then we could actually have a back and forth. But since I don't, here are my thoughts on what the Boston Celtics should do. First of all, Jaylen Brown makes about $54 million this year. By trading him, you already, and the team is above $20 million above the second apron. Automatically by trading Jaylen Brown, there is, depending on the return, such as, for an instance, trading Jaylen Brown to San Antonio Spurs, which I wouldn't do unless the second overall and the 14th overall pick were on the table. And then the San Antonio Spurs actually under the luxury tax, therefore they could take more than actually they sent back to us. So that would automatically enable us to get under the apron, the second apron at least. Then there's the fact of draft picks, compensation, right? Given that we received second and 14th overall, you could automatically get high-level players right now in the draft with those picks at reasonably less than half of the cost of Jaylen Brown. So you have to take that into account as well when you trade Jaylen Brown and how much you take back for him, as well as trading Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and possibly Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser alone has great value, and he can fit in a lot of trade exceptions and so forth. Biannual salaries, not the biannual, but the non-tax minimum or exception, non-tax exception that teams would get. It's about $14 million. And I'm sorry, the non-tax mid-level, which is about $14 million, and there are a few teams that possess that capability, and they could then absorb Sam House's contract into their cap space, and then just in return give us draft picks. So that's one possibility, which then automatically saves you $10 million, which then decreases your taxes that we have to pay, which are about 8 times now because we are repeaters over the second apron. Our draft pick is already frozen for 2032, which we can unfreeze if we get under the second apron for the next 3 years out of the 4, or for 3 out of the 4 years. In addition to that, that would then therefore give you cap space availability to get other players already stabilized and with years in the league of experience, such as Trey Murphy, Jabari Smith, Cam Whitmore, and others. These are just 3 that I mentioned because they're easily, given that these teams are in a trade market looking for players of Jaylen Brown's caliber, and Drew Holiday and so forth, then these are possible returns that we can get for these players, and that they would fit right in with Jason Tatum and Derek White. I am the belief of keeping Derek White, and I don't think that Derek White's 30 years of age, but his game would then be able to withstand aging. I think he would age gracefully and still keep the production, given his talents. I don't see that being an issue, regardless of the fact that Derek White will be about 32 years of age by the time Jason Tatum returns from his injury. But then you would get several other younger and very high capable and talented pieces around the two of them that will offset the aging factor, decline due to Tatum's Achilles injury and so forth. And that is mostly my view here and my perspective, and the angle to which I'm coming from is that there will be some sort of a drop off, and having both Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum in that decline with other possibly aging players or not as talented younger players, because we are currently at the bottom of the draft and will be from here on at the drafting at the bottom of the draft, then these players will not be able to compensate for such a decline, and that will become a problem. So the goal here, especially at the cost of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White's contract, to win the title, contend for the title. Therefore, trading Jaylen Brown right now, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Sam Hauser, getting good return for them, good players, as well as picks, these assets, that will then gives us the ability to not only put those great talented players at a younger age around Jason Tatum and Derek White right now, but for the foreseeable future as well, would allow us to then draft much higher than where we normally would if we stay in a current situation that we're in. therefore increases our chances of getting much better talent off the draft. I have also made a remark, which instigated all of this, that I am of the belief that if we get number 2 overall pick, if we do indeed make the Jaylen Brown trade to the San Antonio Spurs, that we could somehow maneuver to then get Flag at the draft. Instead of Dallas drafting him, he would then fall to us, or we could then work on a deal behind the scenes with Adam Silver and the Dallas Maverick to then exchange the second pick with a couple other assets or draft picks and a player for that number 1 overall pick, because Flag grew up in Maine. He and his entire family are Boston Celtics fans. And he said that it is a dream of his. He have always dreamt of playing for his favorite team, which is the Boston Celtics. So I'm of the belief that it is a foregone conclusion at that point, if we do indeed end up with the number 2 overall pick, that we would then be able to draft him. He would come to us. I don't see a way in which a player like Flag and his family sees us as one pick away from satisfying a lifelong childhood dream of his. And given that his entire family are Celtics fans and he's from Maine, in New England, the state of New England, that he would pass on this opportunity. So, given these assertions, I am of the belief that Jaylen Brown would then be the best move for the Boston Celtics, not only for this upcoming season, due to his own knee surgery, as well as Jason Tatum's Achilles tendon tear. So I'm not looking at that one player in singular in a vacuum and saying that, hey, Jaylen Brown, has to go. He's not good, or he's not going to be any good for the Celtics from this point forward. That is not the situation at all. There are 5 guys on the floor at the same time, at all times. So therefore, you have 3 players that will be aging, 2 of which are coming out of one reasonable injury, which is Jaylen Brown and a meniscus tear, and the other with a pretty major injury, which is an Achilles tear. And then to assume that such players at that stage of their career and lives in their 30s would not have some sort of decline playing together, which would then jeopardize the team's ability to play offense as well as play defense. Then you're delusional if you don't think that could be the case. They will be 2 years older at that point by the time Jason Tatum returns. So, and they're only going to get older, and arthritis builds up. There's so many other different factors. So I'm not looking at saying, Jaylen Brown should be traded now because of him, singularly because of him, putting him in a vacuum. I'm looking at the full picture. What is the best for the team on the floor as well as off the floor, and for the future. So not only the present, but for the immediate future as well. So given this perspective and this vision that I have for the team, I think that it would be best to trade Jaylen Brown right now and get the most assets you possibly can for him. I would keep Derek White, trade Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Sam Hauser. You could even attach Sam Hauser to Kristaps Porzingis in an attempt to then increase Kristaps Porzingis' trade value. But I think that the Eurobasket tournament that he's about to enter with Lithuania will redeem his performance during the postseason, which he was sick for. And he's also an expiring contract. I know it's a lot of money, it's $30 million, but that's not that much cap hit for any team, especially a contender that wants to improve. This guy was a difference maker on the postseason previous to that, and He helped us win the banner 18, and he was outstanding. So just because he had one bad off postseason run because of the plague, doesn't diminish his entire career. And he's 30 years of age. It's not like he's 35. So he will come back from this and regain his value. And he's a stretch five, great three-point shooter, can work on a pick and roll. Leaves some to desire as a defender, but has the ability to protect the rim as a shot blocker. I just think that these other players provide a better value to the Celtics right now. The players I mentioned, Trey Murphy, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith, provides better value to the Celtics right now, as well as the future. Plus, with the ability to what we can do with the draft picks that we were getting returned for Jaylen Brown, such as drafting or using that as a chip for trades. But then it increases your opportunity of getting better centers or a better big in the draft. Then you can then allows you cap space to bring Al Horford and Cornette back. These things should then mitigate some of the distress of trading these other elite players away from the team for this upcoming season, 25-26. And then, but ideally, I think that you should take this opportunity not only to recalibrate the team financially, but regain some more assets, restock the asset, draft picks, assets for the future, and put yourself in a very good position to have a high draft pick in the following draft, which you can then possibly find yourself even another younger superstar. So then when the transition comes in another 8 years from now, where Jason Tatum retires or goes away or whatever the case may be, you already have a younger superstar in waiting, or already at that point giving you a good performance and being very much a contributor at that point. So then the transition from the past or the present to the future will become much easier, rather than at that point waiting for the team to stock again, to drop in production, to then start finding ways to get high draft picks and so forth, and which is a 3 to 5 year process at that point to get back to competing. Took us 7 years to get to an NBA Finals, about 5 years actually to get to an NBA Finals with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and then took us 7 years to actually win one. So you shorten that process a lot more by getting ahead of the curve right now by trading Jaylen Brown. I think that's the ideal situation. Now, it's my time to clear my beef with Jake Isenberg and Ben Vallis. Ben Vallis also messaged saying that, in all seriousness, that their podcast is at the point where they just don't allow just anyone in. I would like to remind you, Ben, that as much as I love your podcast, which I do, I'm a big fan. I used to be a very big fan of you, Ben, as well as Jake Isenberg, a.k.a. Mr. White Wannabe. That I used to love you guys. I used to love it. Very intellectual, funny, outgoing, light podcast. But let me remind you that Mr. Isenberg, just after Jason Tatum tore his Achilles tendon, it was even before the end of the postseason, before we were eliminated by the New York Knicks, got drunk at one of the podcasts and brought in several different fans, including a New York Knicks fan, into the podcast. So for you to assert that these people are above and beyond me and view me as a contributor to your Discord and podcast as a nobody, I'm sorry, but I do take that as an insult. And therefore, both to you and Jake Isenberg, I say to you both that you can take your little podcast and your Discord full of weirdo, nerdy looking dudes with suffering from Napoleon complex, wrap that up and shove it up your ass. Get first to the floor on that.